Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you once again for tuning in and for believing in me. It means the world to me. We are cranking, man. We're ranked in the top 100 in mental health, and that just blows my mind. But it's because of you guys tuning in week after week and sharing these episodes. So thank you. And it's also because of my sponsors. I have Maury Nutrition. They now have a drink called Calm, and it helps people with anxiety. They're the official drink of the BeliefCast. Wasatch Recovery, Siegfried and Jensen, and Thread Wallets. Thank you for believing in me. And then the music you heard at the beginning and at the end of this episode is by my good friend Paul Cardall. He's an award-winning pianist. He's got 25 million active listeners every month. He's amazing. Thank you, Paul, for letting us use your music, and I love you. Here we are, man. I've had some amazing guests on the last couple of weeks, and they just keep coming, man. It's amazing what people are doing. I've always been blown away. I think people are astonishing, and today's no different. We have Rob Sirstins with us today. Rob, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you so much. It's an honor.
Yeah, man. You are an impressive human being who's been through a lot in his life.
Right.
You're doing a lot of good. I would probably call you more of a mentor, if you will. I know you do coaching
Sure.
and whatever, life coaching, whatever you want to call it. But, man, you're a mentor to so many because people look up to you because, again, you've been through it.
Right.
You turn things around. You're doing good in the world.
Right.
And so I look at that, and I've learned a lot from you with not even knowing you yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
The research I've done on you, I'm like, I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And it's even helped me with my own clients. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Why don't we just start off? Tell us about your childhood. Tell us growing up, what that looked like, and maybe where where everything started.
Yeah, my childhood was a little bit more difficult. I was adopted at a very young age, and the first couple of months of my life, I lived with my 17-year-old mom and my 4-year-old sister. And she would leave us for days at a time. Yeah. She, had some drug problems, some promiscuity problems, and don't really know. But luckily I was lucky enough to be adopted with my sister. So she remembers a lot of it, but she remembers different men coming home and then different abuses happening, a lot of neglect, a lot of malnutrition. And so by the time we got to my family that adopted us, it's, we were very underweight, and my mom always told me I never cried. It was almost like I was all cried out, right? And so I didn't cry when I had to go to the when I needed to change a diaper, when, I was hungry, when I was awake. So it would worry her a lot.
Yeah, emotionally done.
Right.
Yeah,
right. And so, I grew up in Holiday, Utah, which is a beautiful neighborhood, beautiful town. And unfortunately, I grew up with a lot of racism, and it is something I had to deal with in a physical manner. I got beat up a lot. I got spit on. I got rocks thrown at me. And so that was my life for all through elementary. And, the only place I really found solace was through sports. And, I was faster than kids 3, 4, 5 years older than me. And it's the only place where I felt belonging. Yeah. And that, somewhat seen. But other than that, like, I would have friends one day when they're on my team, and then they would turn around and bully me the next day.
Really?
Back in school. So what I did is it started ingraining really deep, a lot of unworthiness and self-hate and shame and confusion why I was in constantly fight or flight already, not just from my birth mother, but, from the community I was living in.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was my childhood. Didn't have any friends. And, sometimes I get invited to birthday parties, and I didn't realize this, but they brought me over just to make fun of me and bully me because I was different.
Really?
It happened on several occasions. And so from a very young age, I understood what darkness was.
Yeah. Was there any other kids that were black as well?
No.
Or were they all white?
All white, maybe a couple Hispanic kids.
Okay.
And there wasn't even any Polynesians yet.
So you really were an easy target.
Easy target.
Growing up, obviously, right? You stood out, if you will.
I did.
Yeah, and kids can be ruthless, right?
They were for sure.
And again, I mean, I was bullied at some point, but nothing compared to what you. I mean, I don't know obviously what racism's like. I'm not going to try to pretend I do, but I've had a lot of people on my podcast who have been in your shoes, and it gives me some form of compassion and empathy for you that you had to deal with that. And we hope that people here in Utah are kind and nice, but kids can be ruthless.
Right, for sure. I mean, it's part of it, and I'm not ever gonna stay like, well, it made me better, or I had to go through what I go through.
Yeah.
I don't. Not to jump too far ahead, but I'm just gonna speak it while it's on my mind. I don't ever look at trauma with gratitude. I don't ever look at my abuse that I've gone through with gratitude. I look at the healing components and the wisdom I've gained and the compassion I've gained from it, with absolute gratitude.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I'll never look upon the trauma and what I've experienced and the places it took me to with gratitude. Right. So
I like what you're saying. Again, but the healing process from that you're grateful for, obviously. But while you're going, why would I be grateful that this happened to me?
Right.
In the moment it was happening.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I'm glad you clarified that, because I think that's and that's okay. And I don't argue with you, and I don't think anyone listening to would either.
Right.
So you're adopted, you come here, you start playing sports. I would imagine when you're on the field or the court, you're like, you felt free for a minute.
Right.
You probably almost maybe dreaded when the game was over.
Yeah, because I would be looking at some of my teammates, and I'm like, you're loving me now, and you're going to be, cruel to me tomorrow. Yeah. And it happened all the time.
All the time.
Right. So.
Did you have other siblings with the adopted family?
So I was adopted with my sister, and then they had 3 biological children.
Gotcha.
Right. And they were all much older. My older brother's 10 years older. And then I have a sister that's 15, and then another sister that's 20 years older. Right.
How did they treat you?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at least you had some safety at home?
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, I had safety at home. My older siblings were a little too old to even know what was really going on. Mm-hmm. My brother got in the middle of some things a few times. My older brother with my dad, they were my protectors, and so was my older sister.
Oh, good. Okay.
Right. And so, my family was my safe haven. And they treated me like everyone else. So we bickered, we fought, like all of that. But I never felt like I didn't belong, or I wasn't part of that family. Gotcha. This family, yeah. So.
Right. And I didn't realize your sister was also adopted with you in the same family. I bet that was good. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Right.
It was beautiful.
You don't want to split that up. And wow.
Yeah.
So, what sports did you find that you loved the most and started excelling at? What did you notice?
Yeah, I loved all of them. I played everything from basketball to volleyball, ran track, but I landed home with, I always say football was my first love and rugby was my mistress. Right. Yeah.
And by the way, if you don't know Rob, he looks pretty good, man. His body's definitely look like a football player and a rugby player.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were my sports, and I loved practice. I loved to train. Like it is something, because what I found with that is it's the only thing I had control over was my body, and shifting it and pushing it to the limit and seeing what it was capable of.
Ooh, yeah.
All while I didn't feel like I had any control over any other facet of my life.
Right.
Right. And so that's the only thing that made sense to me was my body.
Yeah. Well, and I, exercise is powerful, not just because it makes us stronger and this and that, but what it does to our mind and our psyche, and even our, if you will, spiritual and emotional strength.
Sure.
Yeah. So you were probably finding like, man, I feel good when I do this.
Right. Absolutely. And it was the only place I knew where to put away my demons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only through childhood, but all through adolescence and adulthood growing up. I never got into addiction. I never got into any really bad behavior, but I would punish myself in the gym.
That's fascinating, right? Because if people looked at your upbringing, statistically, you don't have a chance.
Right.
You don't have a chance.
Right.
And for you to say you didn't get caught up in drugs is actually kind of surprising to me, because that was going to be my next question.
Right.
Like you never got caught up in any of the things outside of what you were just dealing with the bullying.
Yeah. For some reason,
that's amazing.
Like even today, I'm so careful of what I put in my body. And anywhere from steroids to TRT to any of that stuff. It's just like, it's a no for me.
Right.
Right. And I don't like foreign substances going in my body. But I'll have my cheeseburgers, I'll have my candies and stuff like that.
Sure,
so I don't want to sound like I'm some purist elitist by any means. But I knew from a very young age, I'm like, okay, in order to get out of this hellhole I'm in, I have to exceed.
Yeah.
I have to succeed in football. I have to succeed in rugby, one or the other. And that's the reason I took such good care of my body to get to where I got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did that help you with your own psyche and your own mental state, like just dealing with life itself, right?
Yeah. So I look back now, from when I started my healing 7-8 years ago, and it was actually a lot of self-punishment, right? It was the unworthiness. It was the self-hate, but it was still serving me in a way in the gym, and it was serving me on the football field, and it was serving me in the rugby field. Because again, that's the only thing I felt I had control over.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I would go to the gym and 3 times a day.
Wow.
Right. Put in over 4 hours.
Dang.
Just so I didn't have to go back to, the darkness that was just waiting for me as soon as I left. But it's the only way that my mind can function in a way to heal or to keep the demons at bay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense too,
Right.
So you obviously had a lot of rage,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of anger, because again, you're hurting.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, really what was going on, you're hurting.
Right.
Did you like, you're being bullied and pushed around. Did you eventually start fighting back?
Yes. After preschool and kindergarten, and I started getting older, and I started identifying the power of my body, I started fighting back. Right. And I didn't make it stop. I just took on more bullies at a time rather than just one or two.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. But I actually got to the point, which also developed a really bad chip on my shoulder growing up, and it made me turn into a know-it-all, and no one could tell me anything. I was very coachable on the field, but outside of that, like even with my parents and other mentors, I didn't want to hear it. Right. And, that feeling when you don't, even at a young age, where you don't feel anyone can truly see you or empathize for where you are, it develops a very thick ego. Right. Of protection. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what it turned into.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That was also not serving.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, anyone who's been through traumatic things like that typically have those same kind of emotions: anger, frustration, self-hatred.
Right.
I mean, self-hatred is the killer though, right? Right. Talk about that for a minute, because I think a lot of people listening to us right now, Rob, are maybe even to this day are still struggling with self-hatred, or they may not call it self-hatred, but they are beating themselves up.
Yeah. Unworthiness, not good enough.
Yeah. Talk about that for a minute, because I think that's a very common thing, unfortunately.
What I realize is self-hate, unworthiness, and shame is a lot of times, I would say most times, is projected onto you.
Yeah.
Either through situations, through parenting, through abuse, through relationships. Right. And unfortunately, a lot of us haven't developed the wherewithal or the awareness to have those protections and see, oh, that's not mine.
Right.
We soak it up like a sponge. Right. And we believe everything we're told to us. Right. Why we're not good enough, why we're not white enough, why we're not this, why we're not that, why we're not skinny enough. Right.
Yeah. Right.
And so what we do is that our brain turns into looking for confirmation bias every day in every situation with every relationship as to why we believe those things.
Okay.
And that's what I did for years and years and years.
Yeah.
I was told that I wasn't good enough. I was showed it over and over again. And so all I saw was confirmation as to why that was true to me.
Okay.
Right. And so for me, I had to really get clear on my belief set and wondering why I believed the way that I believed and why I wanted to die and why I had suicidal ideation. I had to get clear on what was true and what was not. Right. A lot of times we never challenge those thoughts, or else we just continually say them. Yeah, I suck.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not good enough. Yeah, I'm too fat. Oh, I'm so ugly. And so that's the loop that we continue to stay in. Right. And then I'm like, okay, why is this true? Why is this true? And I started looking back to the trauma with my birth mother and the trauma of growing up in my childhood. And I started seeing how it was in a way injected into my life and my soul as why I believed what it did.
Yeah.
So if that wasn't true, what is the truth? And then I started healing in a way. It's just like, okay, what do I want to be true?
Yeah.
Right. And for me, it was identifying anything you choose to believe is your truth. Straight up.
Right. Yeah.
If you choose to believe in that, that is going to be your truth.
Yeah.
So why not make it more healthy and more powerful? And that's when the shifts start to come.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's powerful. And you're right. That confirmation bias is so real.
Right.
Because you will find it.
Right.
If you're looking for bad in the world, you'll find it. You're looking for good, you will find it. Either way, right?
Right.
And especially with ourselves.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. And again, back to what you've been through. Again, you shouldn't be here, Rob.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just great that you are.
Yeah.
So, I know I know this because I've studied a little bit about your life. You grew up in a religious home, and I think that also, as good as that may have been at times, that was also caused a lot of problems as well.
Absolutely.
Do you mind sharing just some thoughts? And again, we're not here. Just I'd love to hear what you think about that, because I think people need to hear your view of it.
For me, it was, I've never felt more unsafe in a place than in a church. My body, my nervous system, and I never understood why, right? And I'm opening up and reading scriptures of saying, you are cursed with the black skin.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Right. And reading old doctrine of saying that, in order for black people to step into the celestial kingdom, they have to do very arduous work in order to be worthy because of what happened in the pre-existence. And so that compounded my shame.
Yeah, so not only are you struggling, then you hear this in the written word, if you will.
Right.
And now you're going, wow.
Right. So I'm just like, no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be good enough. Right. And so that was what was going on in my life, compounded with everything going outside of the church. And so for me, I was just like, okay, I'll work harder. I'll do this. And constantly followed by guilt and shame and fear. Yeah. Right. Which are not a serving way for me to operate. Right. Right. It not for anybody. And when I actually got divorced over 11 years ago, it helped me really reflect on things. And it was about 5 years before I found healing and the work that I started doing. But it actually gave me more choice to be like, okay, what do I want to do and how I want to show up for myself? And what I realized is the program that I was living of Christianity was not serving me. Okay. In any way, shape, or form. Right. Right. Sure, there's some good things that it taught me, some moral compasses, beautiful, right? Yeah. And I actually left the church with a lot of gratitude and love. But once I found healing, it actually turned into anger. Because I found the areas of which I felt controlled, which I felt gaslit, which I felt judged. Sure. Right. Sure. And so there was a lot of places, and the anger was actually a healthy anger. It was just understanding what I was deserving of. Yeah. Right. And so I don't participate in any religion whatsoever. I find myself very spiritual. And what I've done with that, it is taught me absolute integrity, greater than I've ever found before. Wow. Because you see these commandments and you see these doctrines that one is supposed to live by. And you grow up your whole life and seeing everyone picking and choosing what those things are and when they want to follow it. Yeah. And for me, that was very confusing. Right. And now it's just like, I am so good with who I am in alignment with who I am as a man and my soul that I know what absolute integrity and accountability is for me. Ooh, it's powerful. Yeah. And so that's where I am now with my religion stance. And I don't shame or, anyone that wants to do. Yeah. I want anyone to choose to believe that makes them better and happy. Yeah. Follow that. Gotcha. But it doesn't mean it's absolute for everybody. Right. Right. Yeah. And so, yeah. So do you believe in a higher power? Absolutely. Still? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can't define what that is. Right. I don't know if it's energy. I don't know if it's a being. I don't know. And at the same time, I don't care because I feel it more than ever. Right. I don't actually need to know what it looks like. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, well, going back to that integrity and accountability piece that you said you're dialed in on that like you've never had before in your life.
I'm big on those things too. Like I'll teach my clients about honesty, integrity, accountability. Talk about, you mentioned integrity and accountability. Maybe explain what those mean to you and why those are so important, because it would be great for our listeners to hear this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first two pillars I teach with my clients, and especially my men. And what's interesting is how most people don't really have a grasp on what either of those are.
Right.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
Right. But for me, integrity is, it's different for everybody. It's different for how you were brought up. But being in complete alignment with my moral compass and character, right? Like we know what's right and wrong, right?
Yeah.
But integrity first starts with us, keeping commitments to ourselves. And what the beautiful side effect of integrity with ourself is it helps you frame and build self-trust. Because if you can trust yourself, that's when your intuition starts to amplify, starts to get stronger.
Yeah.
Right. And it's an absolute superhuman tool that we all have, but we just don't all know how to exercise it. And so for me, integrity is being in complete alignment with your moral character.
Love that.
Right. For yourself and for those around you.
Okay.
Right. The next piece is being accountable with your decisions, being accountable with your wrongdoings. And, I like to say owning your shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are terrible at apologizing, that don't know how to own it.
Yeah.
Right. And what that is so freeing for me. It is so freeing where I love to apologize. When I've messed up, sometimes it takes me a minute to see that I messed up.
Right.
But once I mess up, I can own that immediately.
Yeah.
Right. And what that does with my clients, what that does with my relationships and romantic relationships and my family is when you can take accountability, guess what? It bridges more trust in that relationship.
Yeah.
When you're in a relationship or a partnership and you have someone that can't take accountability or ownership, that actually takes away trust and safety from that relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is so imperative that those two, pillars, I call them, are instilled within each person.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and what I'm hearing too is if you take full accountability, own your shit, as you say, it's a part of integrity because it's your moral compass you're talking about. Like you're in line with it.
Right.
And your moral compass is I'm going to take accountability for my life.
Right.
Right. So they kind of go together.
Right.
Obviously.
And it also becomes a slippery slope. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of people pleasers and people that self-sacrifice, that take too much accountability for stuff they don't need to take accountability for.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. And so they kind of die on the sword. They're like, oh, I'll handle it. It's my fault. I did this, and become the scapegoat for other people, which is also not serving, which knocks you out of integrity.
Ooh, that's very well said. I think a lot of people do that, but they don't realize that that's what's actually happening.
Right.
Yeah. So there's kind of like, you got to have, maybe balance is the wrong word, but take accountability for what you need to, leave the rest.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you self-punishing isn't serving you.
Right.
You're being over accountable, and you're knocking yourself out of alignment.
Yeah.
You're not honoring yourself.
Yeah. Beautifully said, Rob. Thank you. Obviously you're doing this good stuff now. How did you go from the kid who was raised by a drug addict mom, initially was adopted, bullied, pushed around, suffering, traumatic events, all this stuff, to what you're doing now? How did that transition start? Like, because you're obviously, you help a lot of people,
right?
Especially men being men,
right.
How did you get there? I know that's a big question.
Yeah, I mean, you asked me 10 years ago if I was going to be doing this. The answer, I would have laughed at you. You asked me 8 years ago, even when I just started, I would have laughed at you. The dream was to play football. That was my way out, and I loved the game. I was a student of the game. In college, I knew everyone's offensive position, what they were doing and how they were doing it. And
what position did you play?
I was a running back.
Okay.
University of Utah.
Yeah. Under Meyer, right?
Under Coach McBride, and then a year with Meyer.
With Meyer. Gotcha.
And unfortunately, going into college, I got T-boned in an intersection just down the road on Holiday Boulevard and Cottonwood Lane at 80 miles an hour by a police officer going to assist another cop at a robbery.
Oh, man.
And it blew out my back and shifted my hips. And to this day, I still have problems with it.
Really?
if you would have hit me 6 more inches to the left, I would have died on impact. But
Dang.
and so what that did to me is make me very injury prone once I got up to the University of Utah.
Yeah.
For someone that was rarely injured, I was injured all the time, right? And so I'd earn my starting position and get hit the wrong way, tear a hamstring, back would go out. Like that was my life.
Oh man.
Until eventually I just had to walk away, and that was the hardest thing to do.
I bet.
And so then I spun around in corporate America after I graduated for 15 years, hated every single day of it. Just because it didn't matter if I was selling, corporate phone lines or, professional landscaping. I was in sales, but I didn't identify with anything that I was doing. It just felt empty.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wasn't a great employee. Like I made my numbers, but I did the absolute minimum of what I had to do to get my check. And I just knew I was in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And I just knew I was in limbo.
Yeah.
And then I eventually got let go from corporate America. And what was funny about that, it was like, I call it 3 weeks of hell. In that 3 weeks, I lost my job on the same day I was supposed to sign for my house, my first house.
Wow. Yeah.
And
dang.
It was really, really funny. And then I found out the first girl I had been dating since my divorce that I was really falling for was cheating on me. This was like the first week. And then one of my very best friends actually took his life.
Oh man.
And to like capitalize on all that.
Jeez.
And I was his best friend that he leaned on me because he understood that I understood darkness.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And so I felt obviously very responsible for that. And obviously I understand that I'm not now.
But at the time,
I wore it. I wore it heavy.
Boy, that would have been hell. All of that hitting at once,
Yeah.
especially your friend.
Right. That was, it was paralyzing. Right. And then my dog at 13 years, I had to put down just to like the universe, just to add like, here's one more.
Yeah. What
Right.
next?
Right.
Man.
And that's what it felt like. It literally felt like what next. And so I spun around and I opened up this, I partnered up with one of my close friends at the time and created a startup of a handheld muscle roller to get like the smaller extremities of your body.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
And it was called Vibral. And it was really cool. We got funding for it. We launched it. And we raised our goal within 15 days. So it was awesome. So we're like, okay, proof of product.
Yeah, right.
As soon as we raised, my what I thought was my best friend at the time took the money out, said peace out, left me hanging. Oh. And so now I had $30,000 that I couldn't fulfill, and I couldn't pay anyone back. And so for the first time in my life, my integrity and character was questioned.
Sure.
Right. And I'm not obligated to pay these people back, but it just put me in a terrible space.
Yeah, right. Totally.
And so here I am at 35 years old, moving back in with my parents, right? Lost all my money, put all my money into this, like $20,000 of money I didn't even have. Right. And what I started doing is started paying people back one by one that I could. Like everyone that sent me an email that was complaining, I'd shoot them back $100, $50, whatever they put in. Not everyone wrote, but I'd say 20%.
Yeah.
Wrote back, and I feel like I paid all of them that I remember.
That's amazing.
And so I was stuck I couldn't get back into corporate America for my life. And so I started personal training and just doing that to make ends meet. I thought it was going to be 3-6 months that I'll get hired back on.
Yeah.
Before I knew it was 2 years went by.
Oh,
right.
Man.
And I couldn't get back in. And it was in the depth of darkness for me. Like my heart, like football didn't work out. Things with that girl didn't work out. Like nothing made sense. And I'm like, I don't belong here. I'm a mistake. Right. And I just remember the pain and the depression being so, I could feel it permeating from my skin and my muscles just all the time. And not everyone understands darkness. Not everyone understands deep, deep depression and self-hate. Mm-hmm. But it's actually a physical response that your body has. It's just not in your mind.
Yeah.
And so before I knew it, I was overlooking the valley in my truck with a gun in my head. I was done. Right. And I made peace with it. My daughter was like 5 or 6. I'm like, she'll be better without me. You know, I don't belong here. I don't want to do this. My shame was just overbearing. I wasn't sleeping at night, you know, and my body just hurt from all the training I was doing just to stay alive. Cause like I said, I didn't go to drugs.
Yeah. Right.
And I made a decision. I don't know why I made this decision, but I made the decision. I'm like, all right, I either need to pass on from this life, or I need to live with purpose and find a way to heal. 2 things that I had no idea what they meant,
Right.
but it came to me literally while I had my finger on the trigger. So I set the gun down, I drove home, and I started looking. Okay, I didn't have any money. I started YouTubing. Like, okay, what is abandonment? What is trauma? Like, what is all these things? Then after that, I found certain healing circles and beautiful psychedelic circles that actually opened me up and helped people see me and me see them and understand that I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
And a big part of my healing was finding belonging in my darkness.
Wow.
Finding other people that have walked dark, because everyone around me, it's just like, hey, Rob, just think positive, like be happy, right? Like, and I'm just like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
Right? It didn't compute. And I felt very unseen by people that truly loved me.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. But they didn't understand.
They didn't understand. Yeah.
Right. And so me taking full initiative and doing everything I could and finding the correct mentors and making payments to just go to like a $450 healing circle for a weekend and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, and people that saw me immediately turned into what I am today, which is warrior work, right? And warrior for me is truly identifying and fully accepting who you are as a person, right? Full acceptance. And when I explain that to people, they're like, I don't want to accept certain parts of me.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not being okay with those parts that we still need to correct and heal and get better, right? It's not complacency there.
Yeah.
What it is when we shine light on our shortcomings and our trauma and the places we need to heal with compassion, it's actually so much easier to work with, rather than putting it under the carpet or hiding it with shame, right? It's hard to get to those levels of healing that we need to get to.
Yeah.
So if you can fully accept where you are as a person and shine the light with compassion, it actually expedites the healing process.
Yeah.
Right. And it takes time to get there.
Sure.
Right. Because there's the shadow work, there's all the limiting beliefs, but, you know, really getting to a place of full acceptance creates a confidence, a self-knowing, and a power that is unbridled.
Right.
Right. I used to walk into a room, hoodie on, don't talk to me, don't look at me, just a heavy cloud of darkness. Right. And now it's just like I walk in a room, everyone feels me.
Yeah.
Everyone feels me.
No, you do have an awesome presence about you,
right?
Not just because you look good
Sure.
muscle wise,
yeah,
but you have a good energy, if that makes sense, about you.
Yeah, and that's something I hear all the time, right? And it's actually, when people tell me that, I'm like, I know, and it's not arrogance.
Sure,
it's almost like it's. I want to say pride. Like, I'm proud of what I've done to get to. Because if you would have seen me 10 years ago, you would have been. I don't like that energy.
Yeah. Well, and is it also fair to say that you're comfortable in your own skin?
So much.
Because you know who you are,
right.
You've accepted who you are and what you've been through.
Right.
And it comes through in your energy and your frequency to everyone you meet.
Right. Because it's a complete turnaround from who I was as a kid.
Yeah.
Right. Who didn't know anything who I was, who was terrified, right? Who I was so terrified to make a mistake. I was so terrified to do the wrong thing because I didn't want to be beat up. I didn't want to be hurt. I didn't want to be, screamed at in front of other people, which seemed to happen a lot, right?
Yeah.
And now getting to where I am today, a full self-acceptance and continually working and healing on myself. Yeah, it's a power that I've never felt that I love to help other people step into.
Yeah. Wow. So, man, what a journey to get to this point.
Right.
Right. So, you go through this transformation, you start to heal, you're going to these retreats, you're starting to connect with people.
Right.
When was it where you're like, you know what, I now want to take this to the next level and I want to be if you will, a giant for someone to stand on for a minute.
Yeah.
Like go helping other people in what you're doing today, and then talk about what you do.
So it was really funny how this actually evolved into coaching. Because when I found healing, all my personal training clients were like, Rob, like, and I'm talking about clients that don't even know each other.
Okay.
All in sequence are like, Rob, you actually need to be a life coach because you've helped me so much mentally, not only physically, but so much mentally and emotionally.
Yeah.
Right. You have so much wisdom. And I thought it was an absolute stupid idea because I still, to this day, I hate the term entitled life coach. I hate it.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
I don't like it either.
Everyone's a coach now. Right.
Yeah,
Everyone's a coach. And so, but what happened is I took a few of my personal training clients and slowly over time they evolved into life coaching clients. Right. And then slowly after that, it turned in 8 years later, I have clients all over the world.
Yeah.
I run 2 men's groups. Right. And it's just absolutely something I love doing. Excuse me. And so was your question of what do I do now? Like, how's my coaching?
Yeah. So now you decide you're going to start doing this.
Yeah.
You're getting influence from, clients that
Right.
you're training, but now you've got this amazing program
Right.
worldwide.
Right.
I mean, your website's beautiful. You're doing some amazing things. So that's,
Right.
talk about how that came about, all that.
Yeah. It just, where I struggle as a coach is I'm not really business savvy. Right. And so everything has been I've been stacking the bricks very slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I'm a person where it actually needs to feel good in my body before I do anything.
Gotcha.
Right. Like
Yeah.
mind logically stuff makes sense. And I'll be told over and over how things need to be. And so over the years, it's just evolved into what it is now.
Okay.
Right. And I still work mostly on referral. I pulled back from my social media almost 90%, which isn't really serving me in a lot of ways. And I also know that the way I was showing up with social media a couple of years ago, it was overtaking what I actually needed to be focused on.
Oh, so I want to talk about that for a second because I wrestle with this every day.
Right.
I'm on social media for my stuff. I don't like it.
Yeah, I hate it.
But there's a part of me going, well, I have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm hearing is you're still cooking, doing fine,
Right.
and you've taken a big step back from it.
Right.
So have you noticed that you're doing it in such a way you don't necessarily need all that?
I actually need to repattern it a little bit.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And
so just doing it differently.
Yeah, what I love is I did enough videos for like a couple years where people can look at it now and see it as my resume.
Yeah.
And I don't need to build up a following. I know some coaches that are killing it with not even a social media presence, right? Which is great.
Right.
I would love to get to that level.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just like, I would love to repattern it because I look back at some of my videos the other day and I saw a lot that were just being done just to be done rather than from my truth and my heart.
So not aligned with the integrity, your
100%.
moral compass.
Right.
It wasn't aligning.
It wasn't. It was more of like, oh, I need to get video out. I need to satisfy the algorithm. I need to get followers. That's what it was for.
Gotcha.
Right. And so I just woke up last year one day. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not falling into that program any longer. So I've actually been in a very long process about how I want to go about it. Because a lot of times I'll get downloads like, oh, I got to share this. And those downloads have kind of taken a back seat right now. It's been more focused on me and focused on my clientele.
Gotcha.
Right. And so
I respect that.
Yeah. And not to say like I want to go back in, but I want to go back in with a different energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to figure out what that looks like. Yeah.
Gotcha. No, and I really do respect that. Again, there's obviously some good with social media.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good, but unfortunately, you get caught up in a bunch of, it can take us off our moral compass, if you will.
Right.
So, no, I appreciate that you're doing that. So, is most of your clientele men, or do you have groups of women as well, or how does that look?
Yeah. So it's interesting. My primary focus is on men.
Okay.
And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But I also love working with women. And I find a lot of women that come to me are ones that have lost trust or never had trust within the masculine. Right.
Okay.
And so what I love is to help them heal through those parts. Right. and actually for the first time find a safe container with safe masculine and powerful masculinity.
Gotcha.
Right? It's really important. I love working with women.
Okay.
Now with men, it is my absolute purpose and focus, right?
Sure.
With the epidemic with suicide with men, right?
Right.
I saw a statistic the other day that once you hit 40, men over 40 and above are 90% represent suicide of those numbers. It just keeps going up, right?
Yeah, right.
And so you see a lot of powerful influencers with huge followings, from the Andrew Tates to the Jordan Petersons and some local guys here that have huge followings, that I absolutely, how can I say this? I don't like anything that they're doing, right? Let me rephrase that. 15% of some things that they talk about when it comes to men are great.
Yeah.
Sure. It makes sense. But there's an energy, and this is the piece that I'm stepping into when I step back into social media. When men can be found and be seen in their shame and in their anger, that's what a lot of these influencers are attaching them to, which creates greater misogyny, which creates greater anger, which creates greater self-hate. But what a lot of these influencers are doing to the untrained mind is attaching to their shame and anger. They're not telling you how to overcome it.
Right.
They're just telling you to double down in your behavior. Right?
Yeah.
I see a lot of men shaming other men for not being like them.
Right.
For not believing politically how they believe.
Yeah.
For not, all these men get up and, in their machismo, I guess, and shaming other men for not looking, not being like them. And I have a really, really hard time with that because there isn't an absolute line of what a man is.
Yeah.
I've seen beautiful, powerful men that are more in their feminine than their masculine, and they're just as powerful as any other man.
Sure, right.
Right? But a lot of these influencers are telling you otherwise.
Yeah.
A lot of these influencers are telling you how to believe and, how to bypass work and not taking accountability, and how to treat women. And it's actually really, really disgusting.
Yep.
Right? But these men are falling into that because they're feeling seen in their anger and shame. Right? And so it makes sense as to why they create such a following. And so when I show up, especially to my men's groups in these healing circles, looking like I look, having the resume that I do of an athlete, and then I'm telling these men, like, no, there's actually power in the vulnerability. There's actually so much power in being a gentleman and being chivalrous, right? There's actually so much power in sharing how you feel with your partner rather than telling them or trying to dictate them like we're in the 1950s.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah,
and so it
powerful.
throws men for a loop.
Sure.
Right. And it makes a lot of men, especially coming from the background of sports that I come from, it makes a lot of those men very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. Like vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like crying. But then years go by and then I get calls from them every once in a while. They're like, all right, I see what you were saying. Right. And so the message I'm trying to create among men is you actually have to go within and stop following the narrative of shame and anger of other men dictating how you feel you're supposed to be.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful words. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that. Wow. So do you do this individually and also with groups?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of it is individual.
Okay.
One-on-one, right?
Okay. Most
and
of the
then,
one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
With my men's groups, I started a group of introduction into powerful masculinity, a group that I run for 8 weeks, and I do it, consecutively, or I will be, right? And then I have my men's group of former men's clients and current clients where we meet every other week.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's what we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have a book on, right?
Yep.
It's on Audible as well.
Yep.
Tell us what the name of the book is and how someone can maybe get that.
Yeah. It's called Ego of the Warrior.
Yeah.
Because it's just an autobiography of my life. I wrote it. It's my voice on Audible, and it just highlights everything that I've gone through. And I wrote it in a way I never wrote it in a way thinking I was going to publish it. It was more cathartic for me.
Yeah. Just a way to kind of get it out.
Yeah. Decompress and process. And then I'm like, oh, I have a book here. And I didn't put any advertising or marketing behind it. You know, when I finished writing it over 5 years ago, and then I think I just barely published it like 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. But yeah, it just talks about, the reason I published it is so other people could feel seen. Right. And understand. And I hear that all the time. Like I feel so seen, and what you've been through, because I went through a lot of darkness, right? And a lot of things that we haven't touched on here, just because of the mindset that I had.
Yeah.
Right. And I also go, what I started doing to shift and to step into healing for me.
Yeah.
Right. Just to give a broader perspective.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do with this? What are your future plans? Like, where do you see this going? And do you have other ideas and things that you're trying to work on that you want to expand? Or?
Yeah. I would actually, with the message that I'm stepping into of what I just shared with you with men, I have no desire to start a podcast on my own, but I want to be on more podcasts, right? Like,
cool. Well, I'm glad you're on this one.
Yeah. Huge, beautiful ones like this one. Absolutely. Yeah. I want to find more stages to speak on.
Sure.
I want to get to an international level of the message that I'm trying to bring.
Yeah.
And everyone sees the absolute disasters we're experiencing in this world.
Yeah.
Right. And the gravity and the genocides and everything like that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
and what I'm identifying, or what a lot of us have identified, is how much of it is traumatized human beings projecting their power and will on other human beings.
Boy, isn't that hurt people, right?
100%. In order to shift the trajectory of what this world is going, we need more powerful people to step into healing.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
We need more people with voices to step into healing.
Amen to that.
And so that is my goal. I don't know what that looks like.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
It means spreading the message of how more people can step into their true divine selves.
Yeah. I love that.
And so that's where the direction I'm going. I haven't really plotted the blueprint of what that looks like, but what's important is my voice is heard.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I love that. And again, you're very well spoken. Again, you have a really powerful presence about you.
Thank you.
And, I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling it.
Yeah,
and I know everyone listening to this is feeling it.
Yeah.
If there's someone right now, you've already said some amazing things to help all of us. If there's someone listening to your voice right now, Rob, who's in that darkness right now, they are struggling.
Right.
They feel lost, and they're listening. And I guarantee there's someone listening. What would you tell that person right now?
Yeah, I love that question. So one of my favorite movies that is not very popular, it's called King Arthur, Legend of the Sword. I don't know if you've seen it. It's with Charlie Hunnam.
I haven't.
Charlie Hunnam from Sons of Anarchy.
Okay.
And it's a film produced or directed by Guy Ritchie. So if you like his films.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie's awesome.
But it's the fantasy version of King Arthur. There's tons of those made.
Yeah.
But metaphorically to me, it is one of the most beautiful, powerful stories of transformation, healing, and stepping fully into your power. And there's a part in that movie when he first discovers that he is the born king. He didn't realize he was the born king. And in order to fully step into his power and fully self-actualize, he has to go into something called the Darklands. To see what he's made of and for him to see who he is.
Okay.
I was in darkness for probably years and years more than I needed to be. Right? And so there's a couple places I'm going to come for this.
Sure.
The scary thing about darkness is it's really easy to find comfort there, which a lot of people don't understand that haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the devil you know.
Right.
Right? I will stay more comfortable in my darkness than the unknown out there.
Yeah.
Right? And especially when you're in a place where you don't feel like you deserve happiness.
Yeah.
You don't deserve success.
Right.
You don't deserve partnership or relationships. It's more comfortable to stay in that darkness because you know that. right? So the first point I want to make is realize when you've maybe been there too long. One of my mentors said is, when you're in darkness, don't sit around to sightsee.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the second component to that is, I understand not everyone's going to experience the level of darkness that maybe you and I have experienced, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But I also believe with all my heart, it is one of the most imperative places to go to step in to full self-actualization.
Yeah.
And find truly what your superpowers are.
Ooh.
Right? And so I never thought I was going to come out of it. I never thought, which is why I had a gun to my head.
Yeah, right.
Right? I never thought. And I'm so glad I kept going. There was just a little voice in my head that got stronger and stronger and louder that keep going. And now, because of what I've been through, I am the most powerful version of me that I could ever be.
Yeah.
Right? But what's unfortunate is some people will go through darkness and not ever really self-actualize from it.
Right.
They won't take on the wisdom. They won't take on the lessons that they've learned.
Yeah.
And sometimes they'll project that darkness onto other people because they refuse to look at it because their ego has become so big.
Wow.
Right? But when you're in darkness, I know with all my heart you're going to get through it if you choose to get through it. And you will be such a better and more powerful human being that you could ever imagined. And you'll be able to turn anything that you want into manifestation.
Dang.
I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying anyone go out and seek darkness.
Right.
For those that are stuck in it, keep going, go through it, and just see how powerful you're going to become.
Dang. It's almost like a training ground for your superpowers.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
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 Very well said.
Yeah. Thank you.
Love that. Yeah. I mean, I'm hearing this going, man, that really helps me too,
Right.
Rob. Seriously. Thank you. If someone wants to reach out to you, Rob, and do your program or sign up to have you as their mentor or coach, how would they do that? What's the best way?
My website's great, robsirstins.com, all social media platforms as well. I just have a waiver. You can just click on the link and put your information. We set up a call and go from there.
Cool. And I'll put the link in the show notes so people can get right to it. But you spell your last name Sirstins.
Yes.
Rob Sirstins.
Sirstins. Yeah. It's a tough one.
I know. It's a tongue twister for me. Yeah. You know, I butcher something every time. So
it's okay.
This is all part of it.
No problem.
I'm human.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, this has been fantastic to talk to you, Rob. Thank you for taking time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor.
I know we tried to do this earlier.
Yeah.
But hey, it all happened when it needed to.
Right.
And I thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I praise your work and you're trying to make people be better.
Right.
And it's so cool that you took the darkness you went through, the light you're now enjoying, but you're not just hoarding it. You're now sharing it.
Yep.
And that's the beauty.
Absolutely.
Man. Isn't that cool?
Being full purpose with it.
Full purpose, yeah. And I really loved your definition and explanation of integrity and accountability.
Right.
That hit me hard, because I think those are crucial things for all of us to make sure that we do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for being on my show.
Thanks so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Yeah, you
Truly
betcha.
Appreciate you.
Okay. Well, I told you guys today was going to be amazing. Rob, man, he's a good guy, doing great things, been through a lot. And now he's giving back. So please reach out to him. I'll have his link in the show notes. If you have someone in your life who is in that darkness, send him a link to this episode, have him listen to it, and then follow back up with them. It's a great way to break the ice. You can ask him, hey, what did you get from Rob? And then you can connect him with Rob. So let's please do that. Let's get this out to as many people as we can, as you guys always do. Thank you for being good foot soldiers and sharing our message. I love you. Again, a shout out to my sponsors. I couldn't do this without you. So thanks for backing me up and helping me with this cause. And one last thank you to Rob. You're amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.